where are we right now? What is the next step to be taken, either the Chinese or the U.S. side, to escalate this whole thing?
Going back to last Friday when the president actually made his press announcement about beginning the process of scrutinizing the privileges that had been accorded to Hong Kong under a 1992 Act of Congress. I think a lot of people were a little bit surprised that he didn't say anything about the trade deal at that particular occasion. So if he really wanted to kind of up the ante in terms of going for China over the passage of this national security law that's going to be imposed on Hong Kong, then actually abrogating or walking away from the trade deal might have been something that he could have actually said. Clearly, there's a political calculation going on. Didn't really want to do it, certainly at the time. I wouldn't rule it out altogether, given the proximity for where we are now and the run into the presidential election at the end of the year. But the Chinese move, I think, is just a recognition of the obvious, really. I mean, during the first 3 or 4 months of 2020, they barely imported more agricultural produce than they did in the same period last year, and $30 billion away from what they were planning to do under Phase 1 trade deal for this year. So it's just, the impact of the epidemic and the crushing of import demand in China across the board.
So then over the weekend when we saw, literally it felt like Chinese news outlets like trolling Trump in terms of the protests and riots here in the U.S. versus those in Hong Kong, and how President Trump condemned those in Hong Kong versus here. Like, what did you make of all that? Is that just a lot of noise but nothing substantive? And at what point would it become something real?
Well, it is noise, but and it doesn't really, in and of itself, this tit for tat, is a way of exploiting kind of weaknesses in one another's countries. This happens all the time, unfortunately, and it is indicative of the very low state of trust and respect, I think, in the bilateral relationship. Having said that, neither President Trump nor President Xi Jinping look like they want to basically take this to, what I would say is an extreme level of hostility, because otherwise other things that could have happened in terms of disrupting what's left of the bilateral relationship would have happened by now, which is not to say they won't, but it's, for a lot of people it would be encouraging to know that, that hostile as the relationship is, it's not perhaps at kind of complete breakdown point yet.